I feel like a lot of communities are always in this mode of introducing themselves. And that is a very frustrating and exhausting experience. I think it's important for students to be able to understand the rippling set of connections that they have to the rest of the world. And I think the social studies curriculum is a fantastic way to do that.
I think specifically for Asian American students, I hope that they feel prouder of their own heritage, prouder, more knowledgeable of their own cultures, and don't feel pushed aside.
When students are able to see more representations, they will be able to see, oh wow, so this is not the only story.
All right, so this is July 26, 2023. I've called this meeting of the curriculum lab together so that we can get started by thinking through the social studies model curriculum template that the State Department of Education has here in Connecticut. Ira, you have your hand up.
I think we need to make sure that we incorporate some sort of how do you personalize this and like methods of personalization per town so that teachers in certain districts can tailor it to what's best for their students. We have been working on creating various lesson plans and identifying like targets that adhere to the Connecticut like education standards. It's hard because we have to balance actual educational concepts with, you know, trying to give as many diverse perspectives as possible. And then on top of that, we also have to balance localizing it to Connecticut because this is a Connecticut-based curriculum. So we're taking the social studies standards that are set by the Connecticut Department of Education, and we're sort of assigning what could a lesson like this look like. Because we're not necessarily writing new curriculum, we're more making model lessons and model curriculums that teachers can then use so that they are following the mandate, but it's not like all falling on them to construct the plans and everything. When I started the curriculum lab, there was a lot of like, I'm literally a high schooler and these people are so cool and they're so educated and they know so much about what they're doing and what am I gonna offer? There's so much I have to offer just by being in the position of being a teenager in high school. And I think that gives me a specific perspective that people who are in the education field who have sort of done their like foundational learning don't necessarily have. Being like a teenager, right, and someone who wants to make a change, a lot of my struggle has been, you know, no one's gonna listen to a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old about what she has to say. But when I'm in this environment, it's like I'm not a high schooler. Everyone here is just working on the same thing towards the same goal. And just knowing that there are so many people who want to be involved and who want to make this great makes me hopeful for the like longevity and also the potential expansion of this to other states.
Okay, you're gonna find this one. You have to imagine.
Asian Americans are not evenly spread across the state. There are over 24 countries where Asian Americans hail from in Connecticut. This was really grounded in trying to lift up Asian American voices in the state and to also provide a means for other people to learn about their neighbors. The importance of a local connection to the curriculum is to lessen that load of having communities to always introduce themselves, always having to start with the explanation of why they're here. It really has to be paired with long-term and layered professional development because we're looking at integrating a new curriculum over more than 170 school districts in a small state that all have home rule authority over their curriculum. Social studies, has really mixed instructional experience across different schools in Connecticut. But we know that it's not just about curating a reading list or switching the books on the bookshelf. It's also needed to build conversation and community with teachers. And that's where we've seen their greatest successes. My hope is that we can show there are serious academic benefits to including these disciplines, and they're not window dressing, that these are really vital parts of an education in the 21st century.
All right, so let's take a look at your discussion questions, shall we? In our first unit, didn't we spend some time exploring our own individual racial identity? How did we come to know ourselves? I'm Michelle Henry. I'm an English teacher here at Simsbury High School, and I'm piloting the Introduction to Asian American Studies course. I think that's really powerful, right? To tell an untellable story. It's been really energizing and exciting to be able to pilot this course because it was just 2 years ago. It was just a mere concept. It was a dream, it was a vision. There were a couple of students that were especially concerned about the surge of anti-Asian violence. So I think understanding my students' concerns, I felt that as an educator, I wanted to play a role in helping to reduce the racism that seemed to be prevalent against Asians, especially sparked by the pandemic in 2020. I reached out to Professor Chang at UConn and to see if there's any interest in collaboration. It was quite a process going through the early college experience certification process. And because we've never had this course before at the high school level in Connecticut, I had to start from scratch.
So I interpreted unexercised demons as like these unvanquished bits of the parents' past and trauma that they still haven't been able to really resolve.
I think I just felt almost this moral responsibility to take action. Education is really a key way for racism, xenophobia, and all sorts of fears to be reduced, to be mitigated. This course can be a model for the state and even for the country at large. I think districts have been more attuned to social emotional learning of students, and I think that's really key. And I think this course really lends itself to help students to develop that social emotional learning, to help them to be more self-aware.
And then another policy that was super impactful in the 1900s was the executive order.
Students really don't have an opportunity to go in depth in terms of understanding Asian American stories. Sometimes they may take one book, if they have the luxury of even graduating and reading one book by an Asian American author, but yet we don't want that one book to be representative of Asian American voices, because if we could really understand that Asian American experience is so diverse, it really takes a whole course. I mean, I wouldn't even say my course will do justice. I want to have a chance to review some of the learning goals for... When I see students, light bulb go on, when I see them making those meaningful connections and recognize that they could dispel stereotypes in their own ways, that they can speak up, they can use their voices and contribute to solutions, I feel accomplished. I realized, wow, this is kind of what I wanted to see. I want kids to really understand that these stories are not taking place just in a vacuum. I think a course like Asian American Studies is so important in this day and age, especially because Asian American students, they really feel othered. When I hear stories of students here being told that they don't belong, or being told to go back to China, to go back to Japan, it's disheartening. But I know that a course like this ethnic studies course, will really help humanize the Asian American experience, to really promote a sense of belonging for all students.
I think social justice work sounds scary a lot of the time, right? People often characterize it as like you need to have these uncomfortable discussions and do all of this stuff, and that's true, but sometimes you just need to like enjoy and celebrate something.
accepting his defeat and ashamed about his overconfidence, he offers his head for the third step. And that is how Lord Vishnu rescued Goddess Lakshmi. Yeah! Give it up for Lakshmi!
Winners will be judged solely based off of applause. So if you like that, cheer if you wanted to. When I was in 3rd grade, Farmington had a much smaller Asian population than it does now, and I was the only Indian student in my classroom. And I think that resulted in me sort of having a divide between my culture at home and my culture at school, and I realized that that's not really what I want to do. If I can prevent other kids from having that experience, that fragmentation for so many years, and just allow them to accept and understand their culture from the beginning, even if I don't get to be on the receiving end of that growth, knowing that I was a part of making sure that there still is growth, like that's good enough for me.
If we're committed to equity and righting historical wrongs, it's important for us to be literate in each other's stories, to be literate in each other's challenges. If we can offer that as an understanding of who belongs in Connecticut, then we've changed the narrative about if communities aren't always introducing themselves, what else can they do? And so, by better facilitating that through public education, I think we're going to have stronger students.